TopMedTalk.
Well, hello, I'm Desiree Chappell, and this is TopMedTalk. We're coming to you with the coverage of COVID crisis from the front lines. We've had conversations with care providers all over the globe who are battling the virus and will continue to share their stories, and those that are supporting the frontline workers in hopes to provide education and support for all of these people caring for COVID patients. Today, I'm joined by our editor-in-chief, recovered COVID patient, and critical care physician in London, Monty Mythen. Hello, Monty.
Hey, Desiree, great to see you.
It's good to see you.
Happy almost Easter.
It is Good Friday here for those practicing Catholics and Christians. And Passover coming up tomorrow, I think it's going right now.
In London, it's just another day of the week with what's happening at the moment.
Exactly.
So it's quite,
I think there's definitely a little bit of disruption in how we're going to be celebrating holidays, I think, for a while. But Monty, how are you feeling?
I feel much, much better, Desiree.
Good.
I think we should move on from TopMedTalk being about me, because I think unless I deteriorate, I think I'm there.
I think you're almost out of the window.
Hospitals again today. I was in a couple of our hospitals again today, catching up with people. It's very challenging in there, as we keep talking about, but they're doing a fantastic job. Yeah. And I'll be in for the weekend.
Well, Monty, it's for us on TopMedTalk, it's been all about COVID for a good month now, at least. And it is a very serious thing, and we are scouring literature ourselves, and we're trying to report and stay up to date because it's a very dynamic process. But sometimes it's good just to mix it up just a little bit. So we're doing that today. So please take the honor and introduce our next guest.
Well, I'm going to introduce him initially as Jeremy Sassoon. We'll go a little bit further into that in a second. Jem, how are you, mate?
Yeah, very well, Monty.
So, Jem, the last time that myself and Desiree met you together was in Pizza Express in London. Now, what were you doing there, mate?
Yeah, I must have been doing a gig then, right?
You were. So what do you do, Jem?
I sing and I play the piano at the same time.
And what did you used to do when we first met back in the day? What was the then but eventually Dr. Jeremy Sassoon doing?
Gosh, what was it? I can't say that on what I was doing at that time.
No, not that sort of detail. I mean,
let's say we were at medical school together, were we not?
We were, buddy.
We studied very hard and took it very seriously. and we didn't play football or go out or anything like that. We studied, and that's why you're in the position you're in. I'm very happy for you.
and we used to do these, we thought, wonderful concerts at the time. Yeah?
I watched a video of one of them about a year ago. They were absolutely terrible. But we loved it. They really, at the time, they were fantastic, weren't they? They really were good. And the Christmas concert at the Middlesex Hospital was legendary around London, not least because it was sort of in the West End, wasn't it? And where all the theatre land was. And I was the musical director of that show for as many years as I could do without getting kicked out of medical school, really, because it took up so much time to do the music for that show, which ran every night for 2 weeks and rehearsed for 8 weeks every night. But I adored it. I really, really loved it. And so, we did that together.
I've got vinyl from the show, from some of the shows, and the kids made me play it the other day because they, everyone's at home, so they dusted off a vinyl player and found these records and said, "What are these, Dad?" And I told them the story behind it, and they made me play some of it, and it wasn't as bad as yours. The music. So I was listening to Irradiating Rita, which was after the Enema Strikes Back.
Oh my God.
I can't remember who was the MD at the moment, but the music was actually quite good. Our singing was appalling, but the music was actually quite good.
Monty, did you say that the Enema Strikes Back?
Yeah, the Enema Strikes Back, which was after One Threw Up in the Doctor's Mess and Casualty Night Fever and
Proctopusy.
Lady Chatterley's Liver.
Desperately leaking rumour.
So, Jem, you qualified as a doctor. You went on to specialise in...
Well, eventually, I'm one of these people who could never make a decision anyway, so I was never going to be a good doctor. And I went from pillar to post, and I remember did my house jobs in London, and then I went to Australia with a few mates. and worked over there. And then I came back and did all sorts, casualty, old age medicine, but then sort of settled in psychiatry for about 5 years. And so psychiatry was the main thing I did at the end before making a career leap, shall we say.
One of the striking things about you at medical school is we had a lot of talented people, but you're an exceptionally talented musician. And only learned in later years that I think you faced a difficult choice when you had a chance to go to medical school.
It was always music or something else. I mean, back in the day, if you had a clever child, they were supposed to become doctors, lawyers. That was the thinking in those days. And so, funnily enough, medicine was a really good choice. I'm still in love with it, and that's why I'm still in contact with everyone from then, and I love anything to do with medicine. I never fell out of love with medicine. But I also did have this music option. And I remember making the decision between the two. I think when I was 17 and choosing, I had a trumpet teacher who I adored. He was my role model. He was a beer-drinking Scouser who was the most fantastic, for the Americans, that's someone from Liverpool.
I was just going to say, can you translate, please?
Yeah, exactly. Someone from Liverpool is called a Scouser. Anyway, and he was a big drinking, but absolutely amazing trumpet player. And I remember he lost a load of work and he didn't have much work at one point. And I thought, I'll mention him here, Phil Lawrence, because he was the most amazing trumpet player. If Phil Lawrence can't get enough gigs with his talent, I'm going to go and do medicine. It was a big moment. So medicine and music was always a choice. It was always going to be one or the other. I made what I believed the right decision by going into medicine, and I made another right decision by leaving medicine.
So how long ago did you stop now, Jem?
It will be 25 years ago now.
Gosh.
So I was
We can't be that old. We can't be that old. and then I hadn't seen you for a while. I'd heard that you'd made the transition, and the next minute they went out on the Tom-Toms. Fairly short order. I saw you at Pizza Express in London, and I saw you at Ronnie Scott's.
Yeah. So there was a big thing that happened. I am a person who seems to reinvent myself either by accident or enforced or by choice. I'm not sure, but there do seem to be many me's. And the big change that happened in music was that for the first 15 years of music, I was a keyboard player, just a piano player. I wasn't that good either, but I used to enjoy, and a trumpet player, and I wasn't good at that either. But I used to enjoy backing singers. I was obsessed with, I wasn't a virtuoso pianist. I was someone who loved to back a great singer. And I found two wonderful singers. I played with one for 10 years, who was a guy called Ozzy, who was a Jamaican guy who sang like a dream. He was a beautiful, beautiful soul reggae singer. And then another guy called Paul Bentley for another 10 years, who was a sort of soul and gospel singer, another Scouser. So, and what happened was that just as things were really happening, 2010 was going to be mine and Paul's year. We recorded an album. We launched the album. Everything was going really, really well. And then 5 days after we launched the album, he announced that he was giving up music forever. And that basically, although I was, there was some sort of crisis in his life, and although that was really, I really felt sorry for him, but that was my career completely finished. I was a accompanying keyboard player who had no job now. And I just decided that, someone's got to sing these songs, someone's got to do these gigs. And I decided rather than hire someone else, I would try to sing. And I'd never, ever, ever sung before, not in the car. I didn't do, that carpool karaoke thing. I didn't.
We're going to do that when we're together next time, though.
I don't remember you ever singing at med school at all.
Never sung. I'd never sung in my whole life, ever, ever. And I decided that I would try singing. And that was in nearly exactly 10 years ago. So my current career started 10 years ago. If I'd have known that I was a singer-pianist when I was 18, when I left school, I'd be 28 now and have the whole of the world ahead of me, my life ahead of me. But it took me 30 years to get it wrong. And since I started singing, that's when you've seen me at Ronnie Scott's and Pizza Express and blah, 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 blah.
And not everyone will know around the world, he's not necessarily into jazz, but Ronnie Scott's is our iconic jazz venue in London. It's the Blue Notes, or it is the place to play at in London.
It's a real honour, to be honest with you. They didn't realise when they asked me to headline during the London 2012 Olympics. It was the closing weekend of the 2012 Olympics, and they asked me to headline. I don't think they realised I'd only been singing for a year. I didn't tell them. The gig went very well, but I don't know. They've not asked me about. No, they did. In fact, they asked me. We did another 4 shows that year. They were really into it, but yeah, that was a real honour. And
I saw you at the Boysdale. Is that where they're down in Pimlico? And then you very kindly played at myself and Kate's 25th wedding anniversary here in Ealing, which was a fantastic night out. And you played Kung Fu Fighting. Do you remember that? How did you get the jazz version of Kung Fu Fighting? Hey, Jem, do us a favour, but we'll ask you some more questions in a second. But give us a quick tinkle and sing something to us for a second, if you don't mind, buddy.
I don't know if that can translate.
Desiree.
Yes.
You mentioned before, when we were setting up, that your father was a musician in New Orleans, down in the French Quarter, and I told you that that started me thinking, because I do a song about the French Quarter, or just next to the French Quarter in New Orleans, a song written by John Cleary for the musical TV series Treme, and it's all about Frenchman Street, where all the musicians and small bars hang out. And in a way, for me, this song sort of really reminds me of the sort of, it should be an upright piano that's out of tune and sawdust on the floor and whatever. But let's just imagine it for a while. But this is a tune by John Cleary called Frenchman Street Blues. Sprinkle my ashes on Frenchman Street. Don't be upset at the news. Just cut me loose with a soulful song. Don't play me no Frenchman Street blues. Hitch me a ride on a river breeze to Elysian fields so green, and I'll join the spirits standing by to smile on the back streets of New Orleans. Well, I did my time in the masquerade, and I ran the rough with the smooth. Now paint me a canvas of peace of mind. Now don't play
Whoa, way to go, Jem.
Oh my gosh.
That kind of thing.
So, Jem, we've been joined by another friend who also met you in London. At Pizza Express. Dr. Solomon Aronson is here. Sol, can you hear us okay? We haven't done a voice check with you.
I can hear you fine, and back at you. That was lovely. Thank you.
Thank you, Sol.
So, Jem, you're going to tell us in a moment about a new show that we were looking forward to seeing at the Edinburgh Festival.
That's right.
But before you do that, we'll look back to that in a second. I think Desiree had some questions for you about COVID-19 on the front line from your perspective at the moment. Desiree, what were you going to ask?
Well, I'm sure you were a phenomenal physician, but you're a phenomenal musician and artist. And so sharing that is important. But as someone myself who has been out of the front line a little bit because I've been hanging back to do TopMedTalk and kind of waiting for my opportunity to start taking care of COVID patients, I have a little bit of guilt. Be like, I need to be there. Like, I know how to do this job. Do you struggle with that at all?
Well, that's a really, really good question. It's that exact premise that explains what I've been doing for the last week. While this whole COVID thing has really erupted, all my gigs as a musician, every musician's gigs have completely gone. I mean, I had 60 gigs in the next 3 months and gone. So there's literally nothing. Musicians have no live gigs. They can't teach face to face, but a lot of them, have moved online and now giving music lessons online. I completely gigged for a living. I performed. I didn't teach at all. So as far as musical performance is concerned, all I have instead of 60 gigs in the next 3 months is I decided, like many other musicians, to go online and do an online 1 hour session, an online gig on Facebook Live. So there's nothing unusual about that, but I'd never done Facebook Live before. So I started looking at other musicians' Facebook Live, and it was really interesting because one of the things I found is that they have this thing called a virtual tips jar. So it's a link to PayPal. If you're enjoying the music, as you would in a piano bar, you tip the musician and the musician makes the money from that. And it's a really good idea. But like you say, there was a part of me that was feeling incredibly guilty. I'm sitting at home watching daytime television, wondering, they do these adverts for, insurance policies for the over 50s and a program called Loose Women and all sorts of things on British daytime television. And I'm watching this, realizing that all my medical friends are right on the front line living a completely different life. So I decided, well, I've got to do my bit. I think this is what you were asking. And, I've got to do my bit somehow. So I decided, what if I can't go back in? They're looking for doctors who have been out for about 3 years. Well, I've not treated a verruca as much as a verruca for 30 years. So I decided I better do some music. So I decided to fundraise. So I made that tips jar into a fundraising jar, set up a fundraising page for what we call the NHS COVID-19 Emergency Fund, who are trying to raise £100 million, and they're currently about 25 million. And I'll raise for it. So I'll do my Facebook Live gig, but I'll raise for NHS, and that's my bit done. Well, we did it last week. We did the first gig last Saturday between 5 and 6 English time, and we raised £2,000 in that 1 hour. It was mind-blowing. I don't know, honestly, it blew my mind, really did. So my first gig raised the money, and in a way, by doing this, and so I'm going to do it every Saturday, trying to get as many people to watch it, as many people to donate to it. They're donating to the NHS, great cause, and that's my bit. So the very quick answer to my very long answer to your question is, that's what I am doing. I do feel guilty, and that's what I'm doing instead. I'm playing a gig, raising money for the NHS, 1 hour a week.
And Jem, I was in sharing with your alma mater in at University College Hospital, where the Middlesex moved into, and they're excited to join in tomorrow. So we need to get the link out there. They're looking forward to it. It's
very, very simple. All they have to do for the gig, all they have to do is to find Jeremy Sassoon Music on Facebook. Okay. That's all they have to do. Find Jeremy Sassoon Music. What they should do is just like that page now, so that at 5 o'clock they'll get a notification. Jeremy Sassoon has gone live. Otherwise, I know what it's like. You just completely forget about it, and they think, "Oh, I missed that." So just like the page now, Jeremy Sassoon Music, and join us tomorrow. Yeah.
They won't get a chance to forget it tomorrow, because I'm going to be all over their case. Because we got you, Jem. Thanks for doing this.
Well, this is a return thing. For those who don't know, I've asked Monty to come and be a guest on my show 5 till 6 on Saturday, where we'll have a little chat with him about more serious side of things, I'm sure.
Yeah. And Jeremy, just to be clear, you asked me not to play the trumpet and not to sing. Those are two So I know Sol, who was at the gig in London and walked away with a signed copy of one of your discs, and that night in particular, I think you played the Linesman of the County was the one you were featuring at the time, which was I think one of his. You tell the story. It's one of your wife's favorite.
No, my wife Lena is a real music aficionado. Nobody in our family has talents other than listening and appreciating, but we have great talents for listening and appreciating. And that's one of her all-time favorite, greatest songs. And it was just, it's a song you don't hear frequently. Obviously, Glenn Campbell died recently, so it's resurrected in the pop charts. But it was just such a random breath of fresh, ness, because it is one of her all-time great songs. It's a great song.
It's a very amazing song.
You can watch that online, can't we, Jeremy? You had a fantastic lineup that night. Tell us who was that young lad in particular was awesome.
That's right. So there's a gig I did, the one at Pizza Express. That particular one at Pizza Express, I have a 5-piece band. So it was me and then my bass player, a drummer, a guitarist, and a sax player. I actually recorded the gig and made an album out of it. So there's an actual album that you can hear on Spotify or, which is Jeremy Sassoon and Friends Live. But there are a couple of videos on YouTube as well of which Wichita linemen with that 5-piece lineup. You can see it online on YouTube. But I'm very happy, Sol. If you want me to do it now, solo, I'll be
one moment. I have to get my wife because I do want you to do it now. Jeremy, this is my wife, Lena.
Hi.
That's it.
Wonderful.
Nice to meet you. What was your name?
Nice to meet you too. Lena.
Lena, lovely to meet you, Lena. Okay, so this is your song, I believe. Whoa, whoa, whoa. I am a lineman for the county, and I drive the main road, searching in the sun for another overload. I hear you singing in the wire, and I hear you through the wine. And the Wichita lineman is still on the line. I knew I need a small vacation, but it don't look like rain. And if it snows, that stretch down south will never stand the strain. And I need you more than want you, and I want you for all time. And the Wichita lineman is still on the line.
Oh my God. That's awesome.
It's wonderful. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Lena, good.
Made my day.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Cheers.
She reminded me that she was on a conference call when I pulled her out of her office.
Can wait.
Hence this intermittently strained look. Mainly joyous.
Yeah, no good deed goes unpunished.
Jem, tell us about your new show. I hope the Edinburgh Festival goes ahead. Everyone will know about the Edinburgh.
It's cancelled.
Okay, so and that would normally be a big event in Edinburgh in Scotland. Huge event.
It's one of those bucket list experiences that I've always wanted to play at Edinburgh. it's just an incredible event, and I've never really had the right show, or you never think of it. There's various reasons why you don't do it. It is mainly a comedy thing, but for musical shows, you've got to have the idea and you've got to make it work. So basically, for the last 10 years, as well as just doing gigs, playing music as such with the broadest genre, jazz, soul, blues, I've had a show that I've been banging out there for 10 years, which is the music of Ray Charles. And this is what I've really specialized in, the music. I play almost all the Ray Charles repertoire. I certainly don't sing it like Ray Charles sings it, but it's Jeremy Sassoon's Ray Charles Project. And again, if people go online and just put Jeremy Sassoon's Ray Charles Project, it's a 11-piece band and a 17-piece band. And it's a really, really great show. And I've done it for 10 years. I've always wanted to take it to the States, but obviously it's a big thing. It would be tricky. But anyway, so that's been great. But I decided it was time for another themed show, as well as all the regular shows, just to have a themed show. And I suddenly just thought, what about the history of Jewish songwriters? Obviously, there's a rich history in Jewish songwriters, back to people who wrote religious music and classical music, Mendelssohn, Mahler, Schoenberg. These were all Jewish. And then you get into...
It's a longer list than Jewish athletes.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, true. Or Jewish people who could put up a set of shelves. But I had 90 minutes to do the history of Jewish songwriters and realized that we'd have to restrict it to a century or thereabouts. So I'm doing Gershwin to Amy Winehouse, basically, and everyone in between. So it's a great show. I think it's a great show. And there's a lot of talking, a lot of joking. There's a lot of surprise Jews in there. People who you didn't know were Jewish, people who were Jewish but didn't want to be Jewish, people who weren't Jewish but wanted to be Jewish. So you've got everything from Sammy Davis Jr.
Now, which category was Sammy? Was he a wannabe or an actor?
Sammy, basically, obviously everyone knows who Sammy was, but he was a good friend of a guy called Eddie Cantor. He was very big in the showbiz. And Eddie Cantor gave him a Jewish object, a thing called a mezuzah. And this mezuzah is what all Jewish people put on the doorpost on the top right-hand side to protect them from, and it has scrolls inside it. Every Jewish household, if you go and see it, they'll have this thing called a mezuzah, which is very relevant because it's right now in Passover.
Saul, do you have yours?
On every door of my house. When you came over, you should have seen it.
There you go. So everyone has it. Now, Sammy Davis Jr. didn't put it by the side of his house on his door. He wore it as a necklace. And he wore it every day as a necklace for years because of his friendship with Eddie Cantor. And the one day he forgot to wear it, he didn't put it on, was the day he had a massive car crash and lost his eye. And he believed this was a very special moment. This was a real moment for him. This was a message, and and he became fascinated with Judaism, and he looked at and studied the history of Jewish struggle and the black struggle and saw the similarities. And in the end, in 1961, he converted to Judaism. So he was a converted Jew. He became Jewish, and he became the second Jewish member of the Rat Pack. Because Joey Bishop was Jewish as well. So this is all part of the show. It's interesting. There's some stories, some things you didn't know. Anyway, so that's the show. That's and it's called Jeremy Sassoon's Mojo, which stands for Music of Jewish Origin. And it was going to Edinburgh, but we're not anymore.
So Jeremy, have you, in that time frame, incorporated any klezmer music, be it derivative or directly?
Yeah, this is really interesting story. I'll tell you, this is a really interesting story. Okay, so the first time I ever did this show, I did it once. I did it 5 years ago, and there's a place in England called Leeds, a city, and Leeds have a Jewish festival, and they said, Jeremy, would you do a show, or do a gig, maybe about Jewish music, and what it means to you? And when you instantly think of Jewish music, or when I instantly think of Jewish music, I think religious music, klezmer music, horror, dancing music, whatever. And I've got to be honest with you, Saul, it doesn't resonate with me at all. I hate it. I hate it all. It doesn't do anything. Religiously speaking, I'm a black Afro-American guy from the southern states of America. That's the music I love. That's the take me to a church with a Hammond organ and Aretha Franklin singing, and I'm a happy guy. So religiously and culturally, that's where I sit. I'm a Christian. And then I said, no, I won't do the show. It doesn't mean anything to me, Jewish music. And then I went away and did a gig that night. And I realized that all the songs I sang on that gig were written by Jewish songwriters. And I thought, well, what is Jewish music? Is it Jewish? Is it music by Jews or Jewish music for Jews? And I thought about this for a long time. And I suddenly realized, I love some of the Jewish songwriters. I like the music written by Jewish people, but not necessarily for Jewish people. And this all started. So those were my thoughts on it. I'm not a big klezmer fan. I got to be honest.
Yeah. I must confess, I love klezmer. It's just such a visceral, but one should know White Christmas is a Jewish, right?
Yeah. Well, I do a bit in the show. This is for everyone else out there. Sol obviously knows. There's a bit in the show, in the first half of the show, because that's dedicated to, nobody does Christmas like the Jews. So all the Christmas songs that everything from Let It Snow, Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer, Winter Wonderland, White Christmas, it just goes on, Chestnuts Roasting by an Open Fire, were all written by Jews. So,
anything that does not refer to Jesus being born was probably written by a Jew.
Well, even Hark the Herald Angels, Sing was written by Mendelssohn, who was Jewish.
So can you translate, because I'm a wannabe Jewish, but that doesn't mean that I know. What does klezmer mean?
Oh, I wouldn't dare to explain that when we have somebody on the line.
No, go ahead.
It's just old country Russia, pogrom, clarinet, accordion. How am I doing, Jeremy?
No, go on, you're doing great. It's of Eastern European origin. So, kind of Eastern Europe and Russia and whatever. And but it's actually, there are various bands that have actually modernized it and made it quite trendy. Certainly in New York, I know there were a lot of great modern klezmer bands who've made it really funky. Yeah. As I said, it's not my thing, I must be honest. I'd love to sit here and say, I love it. But
no, everybody listens to the video.
As I say, I'm a
Yeah.
Jeremy.
So guys, any last questions for Jim?
I was just to say thank you, because we've been talking about everything. We're so consumed with COVID. This is a little ray of sunshine. Thanks.
Well, to tie it all up, 5 till 6. What time is 5 till 6 o'clock where you are?
12 noon to 1.
12 p.m. to 1 p.m. Go to Facebook, find Jeremy Sassoon Music, and we'll be live broadcasting from there. I very much hope that my technology is going to allow us to join Monty halfway through, about 12 your time, and just like my page. All I ask people to do is to like my music page, so when we all come out of the bunker at the end of all this, I'll have an audience to play to. But really, it's all about donating. We're going to be donating this side of the pond to our National Health Service. I hope that people your side of the pond will help in whatever way they can for the American effort as well. It's lovely to meet you guys. Thank you.
Here, Jeremy, just for the people that are listening, when they listen, if they happen to hear all about your Facebook Live concerts, will those be rebroadcasted? Will those live as a video on your Facebook site?
Yeah, that video will remain for the rest of the week. Where they can look.
And you're doing this but you're going to do a concert every Saturday?
Every Saturday, I'm going to have medical guests now. I'm really on the case, and we're going to have some fun. And I tend to drink vodka on this just to raise money. I think people like to get their musicians drunk. So on the first one, I said I would drink a shot of vodka for every £300 we raised, but I really didn't think we'd get to £2,000. No, I thought we'd get to 600, so I'd have 2 shots.
I bet that was a bad hangover.
It was a really bad idea. But we'll be doing it.
You got a little shickered.
Exactly, a little shicker. I got a bit shicker. So that's right. So yes, it'll remain there. And I've got a website, jeremysassoon.com, and there's loads on YouTube and stuff. I've been working hard and getting nowhere.
No, that's not true. You've done amazing work. Well, Jeremy, thank you for joining us. Saul, thank you for joining us. And this goes out to all of those workers that are hard, just every day, hitting the front line there and doing amazing work for our patients in the UK, in the US, and everywhere around the world. So thank you everyone for listening. I hope this was a little bit of respite, and we will catch you again here on Top Med Talk. Thanks for listening.
Well, I met my old lover on the street last night. She seemed so glad to see me. I just smiled, and we talked about some old times when we jerk ourselves some beer. Still crazy after all these years. Whoa, still crazy after all these years. I'm not the kind of man who tends to socialize. I seem to lean on old familiar ways, and I ain't no fool for love songs that whisper in my ears. Still crazy after all these years. Whoa, still crazy